Now, there seems to be two sides to this diversity debate, or at least two loud ones, and where you have the one side that thinks that everything should be in Technicolor, and then the other side that really wants everything to be black and mostly white. Now, I would like to think that there's a third and the best option, which is to just make everything good. Like just make good things. And so I bring up Coco, the Pixar film that went into the depths of Mexico, studied my childhood, and then released it into cinemas worldwide. Yeah, there was another film called The Book of Life, which I find really interesting that there can be like a dozen Christmas movies that come out every single year, but two Mexican holiday movies, and all of a sudden it's copying. Now, I like The Book of Life. It's a solid movie in my opinion, and I'm not going to bash it. I just want to praise Coco, because Coco got the color of the gates in my house in Mexico right. They knew exactly which were the best conchas to take to the afterlife. Coco has characters that look like my tia Chela. They say phrases I didn't even know Pixar employees knew, and they brought out the most Mexican thing of them all. La chancla. Safe to say that I really enjoyed Coco, really appreciated it, and it's not one of those things where I am able to see myself in other movies. Not everyone has to be Mexican and brown in the movies that I watch. I can connect to them and enjoy them just as well, but watching this movie, there's just something special about the fact that a big company took the time to really understand the culture while others don't. So here's my point with the problem with diversity. It's about getting it right. Like, you know when you buy one of those like knockoff brand products and you know it's not the real thing and you know it's just there to kind of like fill a demand that people want, but it's not authentic. It's not, it doesn't have the details that the original item actually has, and that's why it's cheaper. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Looking at the right and left viewpoints that I guess we're just obviously supposed to have because we go into extremes, you have this one side that just has a discomfort with seeing things that, they're not used to, and it's one of those things where they may be okay with seeing black people on screen, they just don't want their blackness. It's like when we see Asians in movies, we automatically have that idea incepted in our minds that they know karate. All Mexicans in movies have an accent and they're in the background. Or when they do get the spotlight, they have no culture in them. Like they could have been anybody else. Now, before I get labeled, something from this side, because Lord forbid you look at both sides, I'm gonna look at both sides. This side over here on the extreme tends to think that, or force diversity in every nook and cranny. I'm talking about like they want a Puerto Rican playing a Nazi, they want Zimbabweans in Shakespeare films. Pretty much it's the same people complaining about Tom Cruise forcing himself into other cultures, and I guess they just want to do the reverse. The issue really just comes down to the actions of both sides and what they're doing. One side needs to understand that if you don't like something that you're seeing on screen because you're not used to it, then don't watch it. The other side needs to understand that if you want something to be seen on screen, then go support the movies that you're actually not watching that have what you want. I tend to see more people tweeting outrage than, tickets being bought for the movies so they can fund the ideas that these people claim they want to see. And it comes down to like, I'm with you, but is you with you? What I'm getting at is that both sides can have extremes. And if you're on one side and you think that your side is perfect, homie, ain't nobody perfect. What you have is one side that doesn't want to give some people an opportunity. They don't want to give some people the chance to be represented, and that's foolish. The other side, however, wants to, in a sense, force diversity by trying to fill a quota and picking people who may not be the best storytellers, but you need the color in there. I was at a film festival earlier this year, and there was some movies that were getting a lot of praise because they were directed by female directors, and some were even black female directors, and I thought that was awesome. But I also sat there wondering, but why do these movies suck though? In my opinion, if I were to give that a pass just because of who they are or them being a minority, I think like that's more disrespectful. Like the whole point is for equality, not for some hand-me-downs or some extra opportunity. It's like, I'm going to critique the movie, not the people. And for those of you who, you'll probably read them in the comments and you can tell they're not actually watching this video, I want to put it this way. I want diversity, but I want it to be quality material and not just like baiting people with token characters. Earlier this year, a movie called Latin Lover came out, and it had box office success. It had Latins in it, but the whole thing was geared on the lowest jokes possible that pretty much just summed up to, haha, he got hit with a tortilla, and I'm Mexican and I eat tortillas. Here's all my money. So the same way I wouldn't compare Moonlight to a Medea movie, I can't compare the filmmaking of that to something that actually has quality. And look, I get that the movie was made for dumb fun. I'm not oblivious to that. You can enjoy the movie if it's dumb fun for you, whatever, guilty pleasure. That's not the point. The point is that when you only have a handful of films and that is the highlight of Hispanic cinema, there's an issue. So back to Pixar and what they did right. One, they knew how to get talent. The argument is always that you need big Hollywood white stars to sell a movie. And look, if they're big stars, I don't fully mind that. They do have to sell the movie, but Coco is the perfect example of how to make bank with foreign stars. There's two who are people that Americans have seen regularly, but I can guarantee you more than half of you don't even know their names. At the same time, though, that was done for authenticity because of the voice acting. Filmmaking-wise, this movie that I'm praising for being so Mexican was directed by a white dude. And that shows that talent has no color. It's not bound to any specific culture. Honestly, this guy was probably the best person for the job, and I'm glad they chose him. And he was smart enough to even get a co-director who was able to bring the Hispanic perspective all along the way to show you the epitome of how it's supposed to be done. Number two is the material. Now, Pixar goes way deep into the trenches for their research, and they've gone underwater. They go into the woods, inside of a child, I think, at one point, all to get the most authentic bits for the storytelling. Like Spike Lee, he's not afraid to show how people talk in these real-life areas. Sean Baker doesn't shy away from people who we're not used to seeing on screen. And Coco is like 20% in Spanish because it'd be foolish for it not to be, considering who they're trying to represent. You can tell when the filmmakers have put in the work to not just bait certain demographics into buying tickets, because yes, that's what happens, but actually make the attempt to reach out to them. And number three, respect the audience. I use Coco as my example, but I know that everyone has their own movie that specifically speaks to them. And while I do believe that great movies tend to share similar themes that are relatable to multiple people, and they're able to all have good craftsmanship when it comes to the filmmaking, I honestly don't believe that every movie needs to be universally praised or universally relatable or tailored to every single person, because when you do that, you strip away what makes it special for the people it's fully intended to represent. I connect with Coco in ways that I know a lot of other people won't, and that's because I see myself in the role. Like, literally, I think I'm going to be the dad in 15 years, but it's so well made that it's broken records for the people who it's meant to represent. And you can feel the love and you see the love by seeing that behind the scenes they've even created apps for any theater not showing subbed or dubbed versions of the movie, so those who don't fully understand English can enjoy it. And again, because it's a Pixar movie, everyone's going to enjoy it either way. I know it's easier to complain about things that you don't like and when you're not seeing what you want, but I appreciate when a company, especially such a big company like Pixar, goes out of their way to craft something so special like this. And I'm super happy that we also live in a time where if you don't like something, instead of just raging out on social media, you have the opportunity, with all the streaming services available, to go out and make something that you want to see. Which is why I solemnly volunteer myself for the live-action Speedy Gonzalez movie.